He didn't just kick her, he did it in front of everyone, his friends, their neighbors, and even the new receptionist from his office who had no business at their housewarming party. One minute Amaka was handing out drinks and trying to ignore the tightness in her chest. The next, she was flat on the floor, heels twisted, guests frozen in silence. He stood over her, holding a champagne flute, grinning like he had just won a trophy. "She talks too much," he muttered, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Now you all see what I deal with every day." Some laughed. Not everyone, but enough did. She lay there, humiliated, bruised, not just physically. She felt stripped of every ounce of dignity she had clung to in the past 4 years of their marriage. And he, Raymond, the man she married and built an empire with, didn't even flinch when she crawled to her feet. That was the moment she knew the man she loved was long gone. And the monster who replaced him, she was going to destroy him, silently, legally, and completely. If you've ever been humiliated by someone who promised to protect you, hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe, because what comes next will leave you breathless. Amaka met Raymond in the narrow aisles of a second-hand bookstore in Ikoyi, Lagos. He was charming, well-spoken, and completely broke. She was managing her aunt's food delivery startup, and he was trying to start a small tech blog with a busted laptop. What she didn't know back then was that she was his way up. Not a partner, not a lover, a ladder. They dated for 6 months before he proposed. Fast. But back then, she thought it was romantic. Her friends called him ambitious. She called him focused. She had just gotten an inheritance from her late mother, 5 million naira, which she used to co-fund his digital dream. Within 2 years, he was making money. Not a lot, but enough to afford better clothes, an apartment, and a car. He hired staff, got noticed. She kept managing their finances until he said they needed to divide roles. "I'll handle the business accounts," he said. "You just focus on being my queen." My queen. But slowly she became invisible in her own home. His meetings became parties. His co-workers became flirty women who showed up at odd hours. She found hair on their pillows that wasn't hers. Perfumes that weren't hers. Lipstick on his shirt that sure wasn't hers. And each time she asked, he gaslit her. "Are you accusing me? You're paranoid. You don't trust me because you're insecure." So she shrunk so he could shine. Until that night. They were hosting a promotion celebration. Raymond had just landed a partnership deal with a Nigerian tech giant. He invited all his friends, colleagues, and even some investors. She didn't know the guest list had over 60 people. She didn't even know the party was happening until 48 hours before. But she stayed quiet. She ordered food, cleaned, arranged the hall, put on her best gown. As she walked around with a tray of drinks, she heard him laughing with his friends. One of them, a sharp-jawed man in a linen suit, said something about her being too traditional. Raymond shrugged. She's from a different world, but she's learning her place. That one sentence shattered the last bit of peace she had. She turned to walk away, but the heel of her shoe caught on the rug. She stumbled and he reached out, not to help her, but to push. Hard. She fell, and he laughed. The party went on. Music resumed, but something in her died. She went upstairs, locked the door, and cried on the tiled bathroom floor. That night, she didn't sleep. She didn't eat. But she did one thing. She opened her old files, business licenses, bank statements, deed of property, even his power of attorney. She realized one thing that almost made her smile. The house they lived in, still registered in her name. His business, co-signed under the startup she registered. His car, financed through her late mother's trust account. He was walking around with borrowed power, and she was about to pull the plug. The next morning, he didn't apologize. Instead, he tossed his keys on the table and asked why she had embarrassed him in front of his friends. That's when she smiled. "Embarrassed you?" she said softly. "Raymond, you haven't seen anything yet?" He chuckled like she was bluffing. "You can't do anything. You're just the wife." "No," she said, standing tall. "I'm the owner." He froze, but only for a moment. Then he dismissed her and walked out. That's when she made the first call to the bank to freeze their joint accounts, to revoke his signatory rights on the business account. By noon, his card declined at a gas station. By 2 p.m., the electricity company sent a notice for unpaid bills, ones he was to settle from the business account. By 5 p.m., he was calling her, but she didn't answer. Instead, she called the locksmith. By nightfall, the locks were changed, the house security code reset, the gate remotes reprogrammed. Raymond had no clue. He came home at 11:42 p.m. tipsy, annoyed, banging on the gate like a madman. "Open up, dummy, I live here." But she just stood by the curtain, lights off, smiling quietly, because in the dark something felt new, something felt powerful. That night, she didn't just lock the door, she locked the chapter. And the war had only just begun. If you've ever been underestimated, stay tuned. Next chapter will break your heart before it gives you justice. Like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. The best is yet to come. Raymond slept in his car that night, and she watched him through the upstairs window like a silent ghost in her own story. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just stood there, arms folded, until his headlights died and his rage turned into confusion. He paced for almost an hour, banging on the gate, shouting into the intercom, cursing her like she was his enemy. But the real enemy was his own arrogance. At 3 a.m., she finally went to bed. Not because she was tired, but because she knew the game had started, and she held every card. If you've ever taken your power back in silence, click that like button and subscribe, because what happened in the morning would make you gasp. By sunrise, he was gone. She assumed he drove off to his friend Kunli's place, the same one who had laughed when she fell. The same one who once told Raymond, "If she starts acting stubborn, there are younger girls who'd love to be with a man like you." Good, let him go be their problem now. She dressed sharply that morning, not for him, not for show, for her. She wore the same white power suit she wore the day she first registered her company 5 years ago, the day she stepped out of her aunt's shadow and into her own story. Then she drove to the bank. "Good morning, Ma," the manager greeted, his eyes wide. "We received your instructions to freeze both business and personal joint accounts." "Yes," she replied, "and I need full withdrawal access moved to me, effective today." He hesitated. She handed him the document. Her mother's trust authorization, the incorporation certificate, the will, the business startup contract. Every paper that proved she wasn't just the co-founder, she was the one who funded everything. And that included the account he'd been squandering on hotel rooms and club nights. The manager reviewed the documents for 10 minutes and said, "It's done. You are now the sole signatory." She nodded. No smile, no joy. This wasn't revenge. It was restoration. That afternoon, she visited their main business office in Lekki Phase 1. Raymond hadn't shown up. No one had seen him since the weekend party. Some staff whispered. One even asked her quietly, "Madam, are you okay?" "We heard he hit you." She looked at her for a moment and said, "He kicked me in front of all of you. And now I'm kicking him out." Silently, she nodded. "We stand with you, Ma." By 3 p.m., she had issued new instructions. All company decisions must now go through her. All access cards tied to Raymond's name were revoked. She appointed her cousin Tara as the interim operations manager. Raymond received a company-wide email later that evening. Following internal restructuring, Mr. Raymond Adeyemi is suspended pending investigation into financial mismanagement. He called her 17 times and she let it ring. Then he sent voice notes. "This is madness, Amaka. You're ruining me. You're being emotional. Just open the gate and let's talk. You think freezing my accounts and changing locks makes you powerful. I made you." That last one made her laugh out loud. He made her? The man who had nothing but dreams when she met him? No, sir. She was the soil, the sun, and the seed. He just stood in her shade. But the day wasn't over. At 6 p.m. he returned, this time with 2 police officers. Yes, you read that right. Police. He came to their house claiming she had locked him out unlawfully and seized his property. She watched them from the upstairs balcony as they knocked. "Madam, please come out. This man says he's the legal owner of this house." She came down slowly, papers in hand, calm, graceful. "Officers," she said politely, "do you have a warrant?" "No," one replied. "But this manor, this house," she said firmly, "is in my name. I have the certificate of occupancy. I have the deed. I built this with my inheritance." She handed them copies. "And this man," she continued, "has no tenancy agreement, no ownership. And as you can see from the bruises on my arm," she rolled up her sleeve, "he assaulted me 2 nights ago." Their eyes shifted. One officer turned to Raymond and asked, "Oga, na true?" Raymond stammered. The officer sighed. "Oga, if madam get paper, you no get case. This one no be domestic matter. Go court if you no gree." They left. Raymond stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "I made one mistake," he spat. "No," she said softly, closing the gate. "You made 1,000, and I remembered every one." That night she received a call from Tara. "Auntie," she whispered, "you need to see this." She sent a screenshot. Raymond had made a burner Facebook account. He posted pictures of her with captions like, "This woman used juju to take over my company. She's a fraud. She's lying to everyone. She's unstable. If anything happens to me, blame her." He was unraveling publicly. Good, let him scream in the dark because she had light and receipts. But she underestimated one thing: how far a wounded man could go when he realizes you no longer fear him. The next day, Raymond showed up at her office, not at the gate inside. He had somehow convinced one of the junior staff to let him in. He stormed into her office like a wild dog, sweating, disheveled, red-eyed. "You think you've won," he shouted. She stood. "Tara," she called. Before he could lunge, 2 security guards dragged him out. She followed behind, heels sharp against the marble, head high. "Raymond Adeyemi," she said in front of all her staff. "You are now trespassing. If you return here again, I will file a restraining order." He shouted something vulgar as they forced him out. But she didn't flinch. She looked at her staff. "I apologize," she said calmly. "This won't happen again." And she meant it, because that evening she made another call to the real authorities to finally file a restraining order. And something else, too. She called a lawyer. "Is there a way," she asked, "to remove his name permanently from our business? I want him erased, legally, entirely." The lawyer paused, then said the words that made her lips twitch. "Yes, and we can start immediately. If you think that was satisfying, just wait until you hear what she does next. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated, and don't forget to subscribe." The very next morning, her neighbor Sheila knocked on her door with a raised brow and an expression that screamed she had already heard the latest gossip. "I heard you were crying outside last night. That man, he kicked you in front of everyone," she asked gently, handing her a small flask of tea like she was handing her dignity. "Girl, I'd have slapped the devil out of him." She smiled weakly, accepting the tea. "Yeah, he really did." She sat down beside her in her tiny apartment. "What are you going to do?" And that was the question that had haunted her all night. What was she going to do? She didn't have much, but she still had her pride. And her name wasn't going to be Mrs. Walk All Over Me, not anymore. Sheila took one look at her and said, "If you need help packing his bags, I'm your girl." But she wasn't going to pack anything. She wasn't going to scream or cry anymore. She was going to handle this smart. That's when she remembered the bank account. Back when things were sweet between them, she had helped Raymond set up his business account. He needed someone trustworthy, and who better than his loyal wife? Her name was on the business documentation, legally. He never changed it because he didn't expect her to have a backbone. She pulled out the paperwork from a box beneath her bed. Her heart pounded as she flipped through the pages. And there it was. Her name right next to his, listed as a co-owner of the account. Raymond had been making money from the logistics company they started together, but the money was in their name. He must have forgotten. Or maybe he thought she'd forgotten who she was. Well, she hadn't. She made her way to the bank. The banker glanced up at her with a smile. "How can we help you today?" "I want to freeze all withdrawals from this account," she said, sliding the documents across the table. "Are you the primary or secondary account holder?" "I'm both. We're co-owners." He scanned the files. His eyebrows rose. "You're right." Within 30 minutes, she had frozen the account. Raymond wouldn't be buying his mistress another watch or paying for champagne brunches with their money again. It was petty. And it was perfect. Later that evening, she sat in her car parked across from the house they used to share. His friends were outside again, this time drinking and dancing. She recognized the loud music and even louder laughter. She watched as Raymond walked out with another woman on his arm. Someone new, not even the same mistress from before. This man was moving through women like he moved through money, carelessly. She stared at him from behind the wheel, unseen, unbothered, cold. He was laughing like he had everything under control, but she was the one who had just cut the tap. The next day, the first explosion happened. She woke up to 12 missed calls from Raymond. The first voicemail was calm. "Babe, I think there's an issue with the bank account. Can you check?" The second was tense. "Hey, I don't know what you did, but I can't access anything. Fix it. Now." The third, "You're playing with fire, woman. You think you can embarrass me and touch my money?" She smirked. It was never his alone. She built that company. She ran those early logistics schedules. She dealt with vendors, angry clients, and even applied for the startup grant that got them going. But he thought he could erase her and still eat from her hand. She had only just started. Raymond showed up at her apartment around 3 p.m. His shirt was wrinkled and his face was flushed with rage. "You locked the account," he barked as soon as she opened the door. She didn't flinch. "Yes, I did." "You crazy? That's my business. My livelihood. Our business," she corrected. "And if you're going to beat me in public, you better get used to earning in private." He shoved the doorframe with his palm. "You want to fight dirty?" She tilted her head. "Number I want to fight smart." He looked like he wanted to lunge at her, but for the first time he saw that she wasn't scared. The thing about being kicked is, once you hit the ground, you either stay down or you rise up angry. He stormed off, and that's when she started the second phase of her plan, changing the locks. She called a locksmith from across town, someone who didn't know Raymond or his people. He arrived by sunset. "You sure about this?" the man asked. She nodded. "Change them all and install one of those fingerprint locks too. I don't want a single key opening that house except mine." Because she was done being the woman who begged to be respected. Now she was the woman who gave silent consequences. 2 nights later, she sat inside the house again, alone. It smelled like jasmine and justice, the scent of a woman who reclaimed her space. Raymond hadn't tried to return. She was sure he thought she wouldn't go that far. The moment he did, he would find his key didn't work, and his account was empty. Because guess what? She also moved her half of the funds to a separate savings account. Legally, carefully, quietly. That night she danced barefoot on the cold tile in her satin robe, sipping tea, her playlist on full blast, until she saw headlights sweep across the living room. He was back. He stepped out of his car, walked up to the front door and tried the key. It jammed. He tried again. Nothing. She watched through the peephole as he pounded his fist on the door. "Open this damn door, woman! You think you can lock me out of my house?" She didn't answer. She watched him rage, then retreat to his car, calling someone on the phone. Then she turned off the lights and waited, because she knew the real storm hadn't even begun yet. If you thought freezing the account was bold, wait until you see what she does next. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever been taken for granted, and make sure to subscribe, because next chapter is going to be her most powerful move yet. She didn't open the door. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She simply watched him beat his fist against the wood like a madman locked out of his own kingdom. Only this time, the queen had taken the crown, the keys, and the kingdom too. He kicked the door again. "Open up. You think you're smart? You forget who you married?" No, she didn't forget. She remembered everything, every insult, every laugh shared with his friends at her expense, every time he called her useless when she had built the damn company from scratch. She had remembered too much, and he had remembered too little. She stepped away from the door and let him scream himself hoarse. She was not the same woman who used to cry in the bathroom after his outbursts. That woman was gone. The next morning, her phone buzzed with a new alert. Raymond had tried to open another account using company funds, but the bank blocked the attempt because she had flagged the business name. And as co-owner, she had every right. She knew it would only be a matter of time before he retaliated in a way that wasn't just yelling. So she called her lawyer. Her name was Kioma, and she was as fierce as they came. "You did good freezing the accounts," she said after reviewing everything. "Now we prepare for the legal blowback. And if he tries to force his way back into the property, well, we'll make sure that ends in court. And what about the house? She asked. He says it's his. She leaned forward on the video call. Do you have the original title documents? She nodded. It was deeded in my name. He insisted I be the one to sign at the time because my credit score was better. He just never thought I'd remember that, she chuckled. Then he has no legal footing. Let him try to walk into a courtroom with that nonsense. That night Raymond returned. This time he didn't knock. He stood outside the gate, pacing back and forth, yelling into the phone. She watched from upstairs, lights off, heart thudding, but calm. He had one hand on his waist, his phone pressed against his ear, his eyes scanning the windows like a predator. His voice pierced the silence. Do you know what she did to me? Froze my money. Changed my locks. She thinks she's the boss now. This is my house, my street. I made her. No, Raymond, you used me. You humiliated me, and now I was making sure you never did it again. Suddenly she heard a bang at the gate. Then another. Then another. It wasn't just yelling this time. He was trying to break in. She picked up her phone and dialed the police emergency number. Mom, do you feel in danger? The dispatcher asked. Yes, she replied. My ex-husband is trying to break into my home. Is he armed? She looked down. He wasn't holding anything, just his fists and rage. Not visibly, but I need help. Within 10 minutes, 2 officers arrived. They pulled him aside. She watched through the curtains as he tried to explain, waving his arms, pointing at the house, shouting something about ownership. But when they asked for proof, he had none. Your name's not on the title? One officer asked. It doesn't matter, he screamed. It does in Lagos State, the officer replied. You have no right to be here. They handed him a citation for harassment and trespassing and told him to leave the premises. And then it happened, the moment that changed the tone of everything. As he got into his car to drive off, the new woman, the same one he'd brought to the barbecue the day he kicked her, stepped out of the passenger seat. She didn't say anything. She just looked up at the house, then at her standing behind the curtain. And she smiled, not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile women give each other when they think they've won. She pulled the curtain shut. She didn't know what was coming. Because her plan was never just to get revenge. Her plan was to dismantle his entire facade, legally, financially, and publicly. And she had just begun. The next day, she filed for full ownership of the business under grounds of abandonment, misuse of assets, and verbal assault within a domestic partnership. Keoma helped her gather every receipt, every email, every document, even the texts where he admitted to giving money to other women from their joint account. When the papers were served, Raymond exploded. How dare you take the business from me? I built it. No, she said calmly. I ran it while you entertained side chicks and beat your chest at beer parlors. He tried to fight it in court. But when the judge saw the numbers, the texts, the video from the night he got kicked out, and the title deed to the house, the courtroom fell silent. And the judge said the words that made Raymond sit down like someone had slapped him with reality. Mr. Raymond, it appears the house, the business, and even the funds in dispute are all under your ex-wife's legal control. This court sees no evidence that you contributed in any documented way. Your request is denied. Raymond's jaw fell open. The new woman sitting behind him looked away. And her, she sat with her legs crossed and didn't even blink. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's paperwork. But just when she thought the storm was over, a stranger approached her in the courthouse hallway after the hearing. She was tall, with dark lipstick and a calm voice. You don't know me, she said, but I'm one of the other women he lied to, and I think we need to talk.
Please tell me, are you enjoying the story? If so, tell me what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel, please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something, even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me what lessons have you learned from this story. Trust me, these are situations that most people actually go through. I'm sure some of you that are watching this story have actually gone through this situation. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you dealt with a situation that you were faced with.
She froze his account. She changed the locks. She even beat him in court. But wait till you see what this other woman reveals in next chapter. If you've ever been underestimated, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. Because the best twist is still coming. I think we need to talk. Her voice was calm, too calm. They stood in the courthouse hallway, her dark lipstick sharp against her light brown skin, her eyes not blinking as she looked directly at her. She didn't look angry. Not exactly. She looked resolved, like someone who had been holding something in for too long. Amaka glanced at Kioma, her lawyer. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Talk about what?" she asked. She stepped closer. "About Raymond. And the lies he told both of us." She let out a breath and motioned toward the coffee shop across the street. 10 minutes, she said. "Let's hear it." They sat in a corner booth. She didn't waste time. "My name's Zuri. I was seeing Raymond for over a year. He told me you were separated, said you were emotionally unstable. He said the business was failing because of your spending." She almost laughed. "He always did project his sins onto others." Zuri nodded. "He promised we'd start fresh. He said he was moving into his own apartment soon. I didn't know about the barbecue day. I didn't know you were still married." "Did you know he was draining our joint account to fund your dates?" she asked calmly. She blinked. "No." "Did you know he tried to use company money to rent a luxury penthouse in Abuja?" Zuri's mouth parted slightly. "Number I only knew he was throwing a lot of cash around." "Well," she said, "it wasn't his cash." Zuri looked down at her cup. "I didn't come here to defend him. I came because he's doing the same thing again." Her brows lifted. "To who?" She reached into her purse and handed her a folded piece of paper. "Her name is Angela. I met her by accident. She thought she was the only one. Turns out he's juggling 3 of us at once, and now he's talking about starting another company." She opened the paper. It was a printout of WhatsApp screenshots, messages between Raymond and Angela. He was promising to register a business in her name. He said he wanted to start over, said she was crazy and controlling. Typical. "So what do you want from me?" she asked, voice steady. "I want to help you take him down," Zuri said. She stared at her. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her, no dramatic gestures, no fake tears. Just a quiet, focused rage, the kind she had once swallowed for years. "What's in it for you?" she asked. She smiled faintly. "Peace." That evening, she took Zuri up on her offer. She gave her access to her chat logs, her receipts, her voice memos. She even had a recording of Raymond bragging to his friend about how easy it was to scam emotional women. She handed everything over to Kioma. "We're building a profile now," she said. "This isn't just petty revenge anymore. This is a fraud pattern." She was finally seeing the bigger picture. Raymond didn't just betray her. He had a system, a lifestyle based on lies, manipulation, and draining the women who believed in him. And it was time to expose it all. A week later, Kioma filed for an emergency injunction that would freeze any new businesses opened in Raymond's name pending investigation. He got served the papers at his gym. The same gym where he used to laugh with his boys and show off his new sneakers, bought with her money. Now the same boys were whispering about him. The whispers turned into group chats, and then the posts started circulating. "Is this your king? He was driving her car. She built the company and he still cheated. Karma wears heels this year." Raymond tried to push back with a post of his own, a blurry video of him sitting in a hotel lobby trying to look composed. "I just want peace," he said. "I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to do right." But the comments didn't buy it. "You kicked her in public, remember? You moved your side chick into her house. This ain't about peace. This about you losing control." The court date for the full business ownership ruling was set. But while the legal battle loomed, she had one more thing to do. She reached out to Angela, the current woman. She didn't answer her first message, but 2 days later she replied, "Can we talk?" She met her in a busy restaurant. She looked tired, worn. "He told me you were dangerous," she said quietly. "He said you were trying to ruin him out of jealousy." "I'm not trying," she said. "I already have." Angela blinked. "He said, oh. He said the business was in his name." She took out a copy of the title documents, right there at the table. "I own it. I built it. And he never expected me to fight back." She nodded slowly. He told me we'd move to South Africa, said we'd start a skincare brand. She gave her a tired smile. Did he ask for an investment yet? Her eyes filled with tears. Just last week, she slid her a card. My lawyer's name is on there. If you need protection, she'll help you. Don't let him turn you into another Zuri. Or me. She wiped her eyes and whispered, Thank you. That night she sat alone on her porch. The house was quiet. No yelling, no footsteps stomping through the hallway. Just her and her breath and the soft, healing silence of peace. But as she got up to go inside, her phone vibrated again. A message from a blocked number. You think you've won, but you haven't seen the last of me. She stared at the screen, and then she smiled. Because Raymond still didn't understand one thing. This wasn't about winning. It was about taking back everything he thought she couldn't live without. And now he was the one standing outside the gates, watching it all slip away. She didn't know what was louder, Raymond banging on the gate like a madman, or her own heartbeat as she watched him from the upstairs window. He was drenched in sweat, hair disheveled. Wrinkled clothes that screamed he hadn't slept. His gold chain no longer glistened with pride, just desperation. He had finally realized it. He had nothing left. And her, she was sipping tea in the bedroom she once begged him not to lock her out of. Open this gate, you hear me? Open it, he roared. But the new security man, Amaka, just stood firm. She'd hired him the same morning the locks were changed. Tall, trained, paid on time, loyal to her, not Raymond. She turned away from the window, heart pounding but steady. This was only the beginning. She had frozen his bank accounts, emptied his wardrobe from the main house, removed his name from the club membership, and changed all access codes. Raymond wasn't just locked out of the house, he was locked out of the life he used to mock her from. 3 days earlier, she had met with her lawyer in secret, Mr. Adetokunbo. Calm, older man, dressed always in navy suits. He had handled her parents' estate before they passed, and he was now handling her escape. You understand this is war, right? He asked as he slid documents across the desk. She nodded slowly, lips trembling. He slapped me, humiliated me in public, locked me outside like a dog, took my money and gave it to his girlfriend. If this isn't war, I don't know what is. He didn't smile, he just handed her the power of attorney forms and a property reclaim affidavit. You own everything. The house is under your maiden name, not his. The joint account can be frozen with a statement of financial abuse. And his company account, well, he registered it using your capital. It's technically yours. She swallowed hard. I don't want revenge. I just want him to feel what I felt. But that was only partly true, because deep down, she wanted him to break. She hired movers that night. Raymond was at one of his boys' hangouts, likely bragging about how he finally tamed her. He had no idea that while he sipped beer and laughed, his tailored suits were being tossed into trash bags. By morning, the house had been reset. New locks, new codes, new staff, everything the mistress had ever touched, burned in a private backyard fire. The bedroom sheets, the wine glasses, the old pillow she slept on when she was away, all turned to ash. Raymond showed up the next day laughing, until he wasn't. Why are you being stupid, Amaka? He shouted at the gate, voice cracking from the sun and rage. Come outside, let's settle this like adults. I am an adult, she said from the balcony, arms folded. You're the child who thought I wouldn't find my backbone. He scoffed. You think this will last? I'll go to the police, I'll go to the press. Go ahead, she said. Just know, before you do, I've already filed a restraining order. And your side chick's car. That Benz you registered under my company, it's gone. He froze. You're bluffing. She tossed a document down to him. It landed at his feet with the kind of slap that echoed louder than any insult. He picked it up and turned pale. It was a court order. His access revoked, his shares frozen, his name erased. His friends, 2 of them standing across the street, laughing quietly, began to back away. He was no longer their king. He was now a homeless man in designer shoes. That night she finally cried, not from sadness, but from freedom. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, imagining the cold floor Raymond would sleep on that night. She imagined the mistress texting him and getting no reply, because his phone line had been disconnected too. She didn't just take back her dignity, she reclaimed her life. But just as she started to drift into a rare, peaceful sleep, her phone lit up with a name she never expected. The mistress. The message? You think you've won? Wait till you find out what he told me about you. If you thought that was powerful, just wait. Because what comes next? It's a whole new level of disrespect. Hit like, comment with, reclaim your crown, and subscribe. Because the next move will leave you speechless. Her thumb hovered over the message. You think you've won? Wait till you find out what he told me about you. The words clawed at her chest like a knife. Not because she was scared, but because she had spent the last few weeks feeling like she had finally closed the chapter. Yet here she was, the woman who wore her perfume, drank from her wine glass, and laughed in the arms of her husband, threatening to rip open wounds that were only just beginning to scar. She didn't reply. Instead, she took a long breath and walked downstairs, where Amaka, her new gatekeeper, stood alert as ever. Did Raymond come back? She asked. No, madam, but someone parked across the road in a red car about 30 minutes ago. Woman, she didn't come to the gate, just sat there watching. She knew it was her. Sandra, the mistress, the woman Raymond once claimed was just a friend from work. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Not the gate, the front door, which was strange because no one had that access anymore. When she opened it, she wasn't prepared for what she saw. Standing there, perfectly dressed in a white power suit, was Sandra. Bold red lipstick, heels too high for daylight, and in her hand an envelope. I'm not here to fight, she said before she could speak. I just think you deserve to know the truth. She didn't respond. She studied her face, expecting arrogance. But what she saw in her eyes wasn't pride. It was pity. May I? She asked, gesturing inside. No. She handed her the envelope. Then at least read this. You'll know why I'm here once you do. Then she turned and walked away. Just like that. She sat on the staircase with the envelope in her lap. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were photographs. Raymond and her. From their wedding. From the birth of their first son. From a vacation she barely remembered. Then letters, love letters, all of them written by her, some as old as 10 years, some more recent. They weren't originals, they were photocopies, with handwriting analysis documents stapled to each one. Then the note. He told me you were mentally unstable, that you had a history of forgery and obsessive behavior, that you faked all your pregnancies to trap him. He said you wrote these letters to yourself and claimed they were his. He said you made up your childhood abuse story to gain sympathy. I believed him. Until he told me the same story about another woman. And another, I'm not your enemy. But I couldn't stay silent. Sandra. She dropped the envelope. She couldn't breathe. Her entire world began spinning. That man hadn't just abused her. He reconstructed her. He told people she was crazy. He planted stories to destroy her even after he was gone. She had spent nights crying about what he did to her physically. But now she realized. The real damage was psychological warfare. By evening, she had regained her calm. She wasn't a fool. Sandra wasn't here just for closure. She knew she had power now, and she was scared of what she could expose next. But still, she needed answers. So she messaged her. Meet me tomorrow, same spot, but this time you talk. Everything. And she did. They met at a quiet rooftop lounge. She looked tired. Human. He told me you beat him, she said he stayed with you out of pity. She laughed bitterly. He used to hide my phone so I couldn't call my family. Once he hit me so hard I lost a tooth, and he told people I fell in the shower. Sandra nodded slowly. He said you stole his company, but the accountant said the shares were always in your name. She leaned in. You thought you were special, didn't you? She didn't deny it. Let me guess, he said I was crazy, that I was nothing without him, that I ruined his life. Tears welled in her eyes. He told me I was the reason he found peace, she whispered. He said I was the one who healed him. She leaned back, smiling coldly. He's a poet of pain, but his verses are always lies. After their conversation, she left with one conclusion. Raymond had never loved anyone. Not her, not Sandra, not himself. He was a narcissist, a destroyer, and they were both his victims. But she wasn't going to just survive. She was going to finish this story with her name on the front page. Back home, she called her lawyer again. Adeto Kunbo, I want everything. Not just the house, the cars, the land in Port Harcourt, even the joint shares in the oil rig investment. He chuckled. I see the lioness is fully awake. She smiled. Let's make sure he never lies to another woman again. I'm not just kicking him out, I'm erasing his shadow. The next morning, a court date was scheduled, and this time he had to show up in person. No more dodging papers, no more texting from unknown numbers. The courtroom would be the arena, and she had a front row seat to his downfall. All rise. The voice of the bailiff echoed through the courtroom as the judge entered. A towering woman in black robes, glasses low on her nose, and a sternness in her stride that demanded attention. She stood slowly, her palms dry, her heart still, but not with fear, with power. She had waited months for this moment. And Raymond. He walked in like he owned the place, a navy blue suit, a crooked grin. As if this courtroom was a stage and he was still the main actor. But this wasn't his show anymore. He didn't even glance at her as he sat with his attorney. Instead, he whispered something to the woman beside him, Sandra. Yes, she was here, but not on his side this time. The judge called her name first. She rose, walked forward, and spoke with the kind of fire that comes only from walking through hell and still being able to stand. Your Honor, I'm not here out of bitterness. I'm here because I was silenced, mocked, beaten, cheated on, and almost destroyed in a marriage that was designed to erase me. The room went quiet. She looked directly at Raymond. He didn't just kick me. He humiliated me in front of his friends. Then he emptied our joint account, took my jewelry, my name, and tried to erase my sanity. Raymond leaned in to whisper something, but the judge raised a hand. Mr. Raymond, you will have your turn. For now, let her speak. She continued, but what he didn't know was that while he was out building castles on lies, I was keeping records and I came prepared. She handed the clerk a USB drive and a folder of documents. Your Honor, these contain everything. Proof of my ownership in our business, bank statements, text messages, voice recordings, and evidence that he forged my signature on multiple property transfer forms. The judge skimmed the folder. Sandra looked away. Raymond shifted uncomfortably. Then it was his turn. He stood, cleared his throat, and went into a rehearsed speech about how she was emotionally manipulative, how she abandoned him, and how he deserved his share of the assets because he built the empire with her. She didn't flinch because the moment his lawyer said, "My client requests 50% of the real estate holdings," the judge's brows rose. She turned to her. You mentioned property holdings. Is there a record of who owns what? Yes, ma'am, she said, pulling out the final card she had held for this very moment. She handed over the last document, a notarized deed. It read, all properties, shares, and investment assets under the Raymond and Amaka family trust shall revert fully to Amaka's name in the event of divorce due to abuse, infidelity, or neglect under the marital contract signed and filed on March 10, 2012. Raymond blinked. That's fake. The judge examined it. Her assistant checked the file system. It was real and legally binding. You could hear a pin drop. The judge looked up. So you signed this contract, Mr. Raymond? I didn't read it, he stuttered. That's not the court's fault, she snapped. She adjusted her glasses. This court hereby declares all real estate properties, business holdings, and joint assets legally belonging to Amaka, based on the evidence in the standing marital trust. Then she looked at Raymond. You are hereby ordered to vacate all premises, surrender all keys, and have no access to her bank accounts, properties, or business operations effective immediately. Raymond stood up. This is a setup. The judge slammed the gavel. Sit down or be escorted out. He didn't sit. He stood frozen because everything he had left was gone. The business, hers, the house, hers, the accounts, closed to him. The car he drove to court, leased under her company's name, already locked. He turned to Sandra, but she stood too, picked up her purse and walked away without a word. Outside the courtroom, the reporters were waiting, not because they were famous, but because Sandra had tipped off the press. Woman wins full real estate empire after abusive husband demands divorce share. The headline went viral by sundown. She walked into her home that evening, unlocked the doors with her keys, and poured herself a glass of wine. The silence wasn't empty. It was victory. The next morning, she posted a message on their former joint business page. To our loyal customers and staff, effective immediately, all operations are under new management. To those who believed lies, may the truth find you. To those who stood silent, I heard your silence louder than words. And to those healing from betrayal, stay standing, because one day they will need your mercy more than your anger. She didn't post Raymond's name. She didn't need to. His story was now a warning, and she was the one holding the pen. If you felt this story hit deep, don't scroll past, tap subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales of justice, healing, and silent strength. And tell us below, what would you do if someone tried to erase you? Let your voice be heard. She was trending on Twitter and didn't even know it. The morning after the court ruling, she woke up to dozens of missed calls, texts from unknown numbers, and a doorbell that wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, curious neighbors, opportunists, they all wanted a piece of the story. But she didn't care about the noise, she cared about the silence. The silence in her house, the silence in her soul, the silence that came after surviving a storm and realizing the roof didn't cave in. But just when she thought the battle was done, Raymond started a war she never saw coming. 3 days after the verdict, her assistant, Linda, rushed into her office panting. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. It was a YouTube video. The title, "My Side of the Story, How She Lied and Took Everything, The Truth About My Divorce," posted by Raymond. There he was, sitting in a small apartment, fake tears in his eyes, twisting the truth like he twisted her arm so many nights. "She left me with nothing," he said, voice cracking. "I gave her the best years of my life. She manipulated the courts, froze my account, took my car, and now I'm sleeping on my friend's couch." He even added dramatic piano music in the background. She blinked, stunned. Over 240,000 views, 5,000 comments, people believing him. Men go through so much. She seems like the controlling one. No man deserves to be broken like this. Linda looked at her. "You want me to issue a press statement?" She shook her head. I want him to keep digging." But the lies didn't stop there. Raymond began selling fake stories to blogs, claiming she abused him emotionally, claiming she cheated with their former accountant, even hinting that she used juju to win the case. She stayed silent. She knew silence was her sharpest blade. But Sandra? She didn't stay silent. One rainy afternoon, she showed up at her gate. She was tempted not to let her in, but something in her eyes made her open that door. She looked thinner, drained, wearing no makeup, a hoodie over her head. "I need to talk," she said. They sat in the living room. She sipped the tea Linda brought her, then looked up at her. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Her heart skipped. She paused. "It's Raymond's. But I don't want anything to do with him anymore." She crossed her arms, trying to keep her face unreadable. "Why tell me?" "Because he's planning something stupid. He's angry that the sympathy train is slowing down. He's trying to ruin you." She waited. "He said if the courts won't give him your money, he'll make the world turn on you. And if that fails, he'll break in and take what he wants." She stood slowly. "Did he say that exactly?" She nodded. "And I recorded it." She pulled out her phone and played the audio. Raymond's voice boomed out clearly. "She made a fool out of me in court. But watch, I'll break into that house, live stream it. Say she attacked me first and they'll believe me. All I need is the right timing." She stared at the speaker as the blood drained from her face. He wasn't just bitter, he was unhinged, and he was planning to play the victim again. That night, she called her lawyer. They filed a restraining order extension, but she went one step further. She installed 24/7 surveillance, hired private security, and armed herself with pepper spray, batons, and a panic button that alerted the police in 3 seconds. He wouldn't take her peace. Not again. A week passed. No word from Raymond. The video traffic died down until she saw a headline. "Man arrested for attempted break-in at ex-wife's mansion, claims it was a live stream performance." She clicked faster than her heart was beating. The security footage was leaked. There he was, Raymond climbing her backyard fence at 2 a.m. a GoPro strapped to his chest. Mumbling into a mic, "Just watch. She's the devil, I'm just getting what's mine. Then flashing lights, police, guns drawn, Raymond on the ground screaming, I'm the victim, she took everything. It went viral. Again. But this time the world didn't sympathize. They saw the truth, uncut, unscripted, unforgivable. The blogs turned. From husband to intruder. The fall of Raymond Mensah. Ex-wife breaks silence after attempted break-in. He kicked her. She froze everything. Now he's behind bars. She didn't speak to any media outlets, but she did post one thing. On her Instagram story. A single slide, black background, white words. When you lie, you need a script. When you live in truth, you just need silence. Thrive in peace. He kicked her and laughed. Raymond was charged with attempted burglary and violating the restraining order. Sandra disappeared from social media. And her. She sat in her garden that night, barefoot, no makeup, no press, just her and the stars. She lit a candle, not for him, for every woman like her, for every woman told to just let it go, for every woman who stayed silent for too long. Because now, they were speaking, and the world was finally listening. But peace doesn't last forever. 2 days later, she received a letter from Raymond's mother, handwritten, sealed with wax, mailed from Ghana, and the last line read, You may have beaten my son in court, but you will not break this family. Watch yourself. And just like that, the next battle had begun. If this story moved you, if you've ever survived something others couldn't see, don't just watch. Tap subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. Let's give power back to the ones who were kicked and left for dead. And show them they're not alone. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if your ex came back with a threat like this? Back at the conference, she looked down at her phone. A new voicemail. From Raymond. Please. His voice cracked. Just one conversation, no cameras, no guards, just us. She didn't delete it. She didn't respond either. Because some chapters don't deserve sequels, they deserve silence. That weekend, she took her daughter shopping. Mom, she said, tugging on her hand, can we go to the old thrift store? She laughed. The same one. Yes, I want to show you something. They walked in. The smell hadn't changed, but the vibe had. People nodded at her now, smiled, a few even whispered, That's her. Her daughter pulled her toward the back. I want to buy this, she said, holding up a dusty plaque with the words. She remembered who she was. And the game changed. Perfect, she said, hugging her. We'll hang it above our front door. She tilted her head. The mansion one or the apartment? She smiled. The one where we feel the most free. That night, as she soaked in the bath with candles around her and silence finally wrapping its arms around her soul, she replayed everything in her mind. The betrayal. The kick, the laughter, the tears. The ice-cold nights she slept wondering who she was without him. Now she knew. She was the woman who didn't just survive being kicked in front of friends. She was the woman who kicked back. In silence, in strategy, and in style. And as for Raymond, he became the cautionary tale. If you followed this story to the end, then you know one thing for sure. Power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it signs paperwork. If this ending made you feel something, smash that like button, leave a comment about your favorite revenge moment, and subscribe to this channel, because the next story might be yours.